To hit that top level, you got to be ready to be falling, failing, crying, questioning your life choices.
Meet Alison Tetrick. She was born and raised on a ranch in California. Then she became an NCAA tennis player, turned biochemist, turned professional cyclist and storyteller, and free-range entrepreneur.
Sports, they don't just teach competition, they teach you to adapt, to listen and lead. And they teach you also to push through those setbacks. Then your story starts becoming a story that can guide others. And it's just so much more than just sport.
In today's episode, we draw a parallel between sports and entrepreneurship to truly see the impact that doing the sport has on your life and business in general. Ali is a 3-time gravel world champion, Unbound 200 winner, representing the USA national team at the Pan American Games, and has medaled at the UCI Road World Championships in the team time trial.
Sports just really do change lives, and they've definitely changed my life.
She's a traumatic brain injury survivor after crashing a professional race, and even that the bike almost took her life, it also saved her life. Alison served on the board of directors for USA Cycling for 10 years and is on the Team USA Athletes Commission leadership team.
Visibility is viability. The more we watch women in sports, the more women win, and we're inspiring the next generation.
She's passionate about creating opportunities, education, and access to cycling through scholarships and community engagement. Alison believes sports can make a powerful difference to change the world and continue to do the work to make a difference. Alison and her husband, Blaze Behrens, founded Saga Ventures in order to funnel their creative energy and professional expertise into purpose-driven projects.
Start lines deserve more celebration than finish lines.
Ali, welcome to Authority in the Wild.
Wow, thank you for having me. It's been a couple of months. We've been trying to get this sorted out, so it's exciting to be here.
Yeah, indeed, but super happy that you make it happen. And as I shared with you earlier, it's the first time I talk with a world champion.
Well, cycling has been in my life for a little while, but didn't always start that way.
Yeah, I know you grew up at a ranch, and from that you become a tennis player, then a scientist, and then a cyclist. Can you share a bit of that background?
Yeah, so I'm calling you here from Petaluma, California. It's in Northern California, a little north of San Francisco. And I was born and raised in California on a cattle ranch. So I actually knew how to ride a horse before I ever rode a bike. And I think that's very interesting because, especially in female sports, the trajectory to becoming professional or the best in the world at what you're doing in a sport, it often isn't linear or traditional. So I didn't play a lot of organized sports growing up because we lived in the middle of nowhere. My parents aren't driving me in to go play soccer or anything like that. So I didn't pick up tennis till high school and then ended up playing NCAA tennis, getting a scholarship to go play tennis. And I became a biochemist. And when I actually got injured in college, so I graduated in 3 years because I tore my MCL. And I couldn't play. So I just graduated and went straight into chemistry research and drug discovery. But it was super frustrating to play a sport to its entirety. And I knew I was never going to be the best in the world at tennis. And tennis is such a skill sport that requires so much time. You need to start at this young age, and it's just like skill and skill. And I'm there and I'm just frustrated and still a little competitive working there in the lab. And my grandfather raced bikes, and he didn't start racing till after maybe like 55 years old. He served as a veteran, so he missed a lot of his childhood and didn't play sports until he retired. And he told me I could go to the Olympics in cycling, and I was like, that's so dorky. You know, cycling, you have those like tight, bright clothing, you're like going around on bike paths. I was like, I played tennis. So I ended up picking up the sport, and before you know it, I was racing in Europe on the USA national team. I got to do my first bike race with my grandfather. It's a very fun story. You know, I'm wearing one of his old jerseys. I got my number upside down. He was a tough guy, but it was a way that got me in the sport, and then also became a very special part of our relationship because he didn't always tell me he loved me. He had a hard life. And then cycling became just our love language in a way where we got to share this experience together. He's since passed away, but it was really special to be able to share some of these wins and losses with him. So that's how I kind of got into the sport. It was a very quick trajectory, but worth it for sure.
Yeah, that's you end up becoming 3 times gravel world champion and from a like fast trajectory, and especially since you didn't start it that way and have that more setback when it comes to your injury and such. And it always intrigued me, apart from this special bond that sports can bring people together and family members, like was your case, in which indeed certain individuals, they are not able to share emotions other than introducing you to a sport or playing with you or cycling in your case with you, to putting these seeds that turn Ali into a world champion. And what makes a world champion? Because always, it's the first time I am happy to be able to answer this question. And I have no idea if it's the talent itself, is the work, it's a combination of things, it's something else. Please tell me.
Yeah, I think that you're so true though, that the sports just hold such a powerful vessel to tell stories, to build connections, to help brands market, create advocacy. Sports just really do change lives, and they've definitely changed my life. And he just asked me that question about a path to becoming winning races, becoming a gravel world champion. And I don't look at those and think that that was it. That was the pinnacle. Like I look at it, and it sounds so cliche, as this journey, because especially in bike racing, you lose so many more races than you win. So to hit that top level, you got to be ready to be like falling, failing, crying, questioning your life choices. So I think it takes a lot of resilience, because you have to figure out, you have to enjoy that process to your goal. So first of all, your goal doesn't have to be a world champion. It's just a goal that inspires you, that makes you want to get up in the morning and makes your heart flutter. Because when you look back at it, you're going to remember every single day leading up to that moment much more than you're going to remember that moment. And then you have to be ready to get knocked down a bunch and question it. And then approaching things with curiosity. So trying to figure out how far you can push yourself. When is it too far? Is there a better way to train? Is something going to make me happier? Like I learned that I had to be happy to perform. And I didn't do well with being like super, like, I don't know, aggressively, like this is like all in all. I had to remember, especially which we can touch on later, is having some really traumatic, literally, setbacks and injuries where you have to separate your identity. So you can't just be like, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to be a world champion. I want to be CEO. You have to enjoy that process and understand that you're so much more. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. If you get laser focused just on one thing, you don't find that balance or just that genuine curiosity. And I think there's just so much more than podiums. I think it's like how you shape the sport, how you're going to shape the next generation. And so sometimes I have to remind myself why I'm doing it. And I didn't perform well doing it just for me. I wanted to do it for other people and for a greater good, a greater impact. So I think there's no perfect solution at all on this, but I just really enjoying the process, which I know is so overstated. But when you look back, you don't remember just a podium. You remember all those people that supported you, those long rides with your friends, those geeking out over data and trying to find the perfect way to approach the race. And then be totally ready for somebody just to flip the script on you. You know, you get sick or something happens in your family. You have to address these injuries and things like that. So you have to be really flexible that way, and making sure you're finding joy in other things besides just your goal, but then also making sure your goal inspires you.
Love your answer, because what you just described there, it's basically as well the part of entrepreneurship. Is this ups and downs, the adjusting, it, taking care of other things, having some sort of goal, but not to become the best entrepreneur in the world or to become the world champion, but rather to take it step by step and in the same time enjoying it and making sure that it's something more than just the podium or winning races. Because as you mentioned, especially cyclists and also in other sports, I read a stat recently, I think it was about, speaking of tennis, Roger Federer, that,
Federer,
yeah,
yeah,
he won like 52 or 54% of all his games. And I'm like, but he was one of the best in history and still just won a bit over half of his games played. And I was like, what?
that was great. He did a keynote for a university and it was amazing. The stat was like 51 or 52%. And I think he's considered the best of all time. And that's where you kind of have to be ready to fail, like we do in life. Like nothing's perfect. And I will tell you though, I am big on finding the joy and the happiness, but there are days that it's still work. Like you still don't want to be out there. It's not like every day I was getting on my bike going, this is the best day ever. So you have to want to do it and prepare to work hard. But I think the other big key here is I always use this. I like the time trial, which came down to very specific data and aerodynamic testing. And it's control your controllables, because I can't control how you're going to prepare for the race. I can only control how I'm going to prepare for the race. And so when you finish and you're disappointed, did you do the best you can to prepare yourself? And if you didn't, then go back and make those adjustments. And so then I also think that people get caught up and disappointed in their result. They didn't win, or they didn't podium, or they didn't PR. And there's results, and your performance is totally different. Did you challenge yourself and do the best you could do on that day? Then my grandfather would be like, then why are you crying? Did you do the best? And I'd be like, no, I should have gone to sleep earlier, or gone to this altitude camp. Then he's like, all right, well then next time change that. But then if I was like, I did everything perfect and she still beat me, he's like, your result is different than your effort. If you're proud of your effort, be proud of your effort, because your effort doesn't always resemble the result. And I think that's an important. People think effort and result are the same thing often, right? They get blended in. If you did it PR, then your effort must have been horrible.
Yeah, exactly. And that's often a missing piece of success in any endeavors, either sports, business, life. And if you look at the wrong performance indicator, you might be on the wrong side of the winning or the success. But if you're wrong, like if you put that effort, if you control what you can control, not things that are out there, you cannot reach them and so on, it's much more easier for you to be actually successful and see progress and learn from it. Because yeah, like anything, sports is not perfect every single time. You don't enjoy it every single time. There will be setbacks. There will be things that come your way and you simply cannot foresee them, or something that you foresee. Oh, I didn't do that the right way. Let's adjust the next time, like you were advised. And speaking of setbacks, I know that you have a traumatic brain injury while cycling. If you're not shy of sharing, can you please get us back?
I've crashed a lot, so I've broken most of the bones in my body. Cycling is not super nice to your body. You're wearing like nothing but your underwear and jumping out of a car at like 45 miles an hour. But I had a traumatic brain injury. I crashed at a bike race in 2010 and life flighted out. It was very bad and broke my pelvis and my brain. And I came back to the sport too quickly. This was a little bit before concussions were popular to discuss. And so since I couldn't walk, I'm in a wheelchair, and I'm obsessed about, this is where I learned, do not have your identity all on sport. Make sure you remember your other things, because when you're laid up and you only considered yourself one part of you, then it gets very lonely and it's hard to find joy in that. But I was really fixated on coming back because had all these goals and this is what I wanted to do. And I came back and I was at the Pan American Games like 8 months after. I've been riding for a couple months, and I had a fluke crash, landed on my head. Not a traumatic brain injury, but concussion, because it was so close after this like very bad brain bonk that I couldn't ride. It was just like darkness from there on. Like I couldn't read. I was severely depressed. My anxiety went like through the roof, and I just like lights were out, and I just had to move back home with my parents and just stare at a wall. And it was just so hard to go through. And I ended up I worked with a neuropsychologist to help me. I went to a sports psychologist because I was having panic attacks when trying to descend. Everything was just so scary. And they were like, you need to go to neuropsych. So I got to work to kind of retrain my brain to be able to process, to even track a mouse cursor across the screen. And I worked so hard on that, and I kept going into his office, and he wasn't allowing me to ride yet, because waiting for my symptoms to go. And it's 6 months, and you just think about all that fitness you're losing and all the races you should be at, and you're watching that year's Olympics go away, and you're just watching this all happen in front of you. And I was so frustrated. But then he said, every time I'd go into his office, he'd say, why do you want to be here? And I said, I'd have this like, oh, because this race, or oh, this person, and then one time I went into his office and he said, why? And I said, why do you want to go back on your bike? And I said, because the swear word bike owes me something. And then I was like, oh no, I just swore in front of my doctor, and that seems a little aggressive. And he said, that is the most sane thing you have said, because for you to come back, you're doing it on Like, we're going to do it on your terms. Like, you're going to do it for you and on your terms. And we're going to do what makes you happy and find races that make you happy, surround you with teammates that make you happy and a support system. And so then I was able to come back, I think, maybe not as fast as I was before, but I was a more balanced, healthy human being. And I think his work with me gave me the longevity that my career has now. And it was so much so I entered a PhD program in neuropsychology because it was just a fascinating experience to take psychology, which is a little softer science, and take all the chemistry things that I'd studied and you like mix them into one to figure out how do we find this ultimate performance, but also make healthier people. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely, because often we don't look at these internal things and how brain is, how these things affect everything that we do, from sports to day by day life. And maybe you even believe that invincible. Even after the first accident, you thought that, oh, happened once, won't happen next, so on. And I see a lot of people that go through these traumatic events, but they don't bounce back. But you did. Thanks to the help, but thanks as well to you, because at some point I personally believe that you truly believe in yourself, that you are able to come back. But I want to hear from you, like your past self say to you, you are able to get through this. You are able to bounce back. You are able to go on that bike again and win competitions or participate in the next world championship and so on.
I think what I had to tell myself is there was no other option because it's such a scary, traumatic place to be, to feel like that helpless, that I realized if I didn't face it, just even for me, I don't think I'd ever compete again or ever want to push myself to those limits. And I was, I think, more scared of me not going back than me to go back because I was scared of what version of myself that would be. And I knew I needed to push through that just to try. And I think that's where it started, is just one day at a time trying, because I didn't want to live staring at that wall in, my old childhood room, too paralyzed to go and move and keep challenging myself. But then I did also have to understand what risk I was willing to take and come to terms with, I'm going to choose my health over results any day. So if that's breaking in a final corner, if that's, needing a mental health reset week, I need to make sure I'm doing that because it's no result is worth my health. But once I think that let go so much pressure when you face it that way, that you can't really fail then, because all you're doing is taking it one day at a time and knowing that you just want to get better at something. And that's just a true gift. And, each day we're living here on the earth is a gift. But how about the gift of just being able to challenge yourself and get better at something? It's so great. And I think there's a big misconnect too, where people think you have to be one thing or the other. And so I have this thing I play with in my head is like grit and grace. Grit is going to make you fight through hard times, through bad weather, through bad business deals, whatever, and you're going to push, push, push. And then grace is also going to make sure that you're still a whole person when it's all over, and that you can give yourself that grace during the ebbs and flows. But it's not like you don't only have to be gritty and only have to be super hardcore to win. You also can have vulnerability, authenticity, forgiveness. And I think it's this one can exist together. And I think then that yields, I think, some of the best performances in sports and life.
Absolutely, because when you put yourself first and when you take care of yourself and your health and so on, and don't rush it, like taking things day by day can make the whole difference, rather than putting all your effort into performing every single day at your peak when you don't have time for recovery, or taking a day or a week off, yes, like you mentioned, for taking care of your mental health and taking care of your body. Recovery is underrated. And still from sports, I heard he was interviewed with Cristiano Ronaldo, that he spent a certain amount of hours training and a certain amount of hours recovering, the same amount of hours recovering. How is in cycling? Like because the effort on the legs, so I grew up watching Tour de France. And in the times when Lance Armstrong was like winning year after year and so on. And I know that you have a podcast together, The Move, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And
The Move. Yep. Just got back from Aspen with Lancey fans.
nice. And I was watching some behind the scenes, and like they were straight away into the massage room. But can you paint a picture of what it means to truly recover from such a activity? Because cycling is exhausting.
Oh, it is. It's so exhausting. I don't think people recover near enough. I know I don't because I like to keep moving and do all my other little projects. But men are training, say, 35, 40 hours a week. Women a little less, sometimes, peak weeks higher. And it requires, full days off, sometimes of recovery. And there's just so much mobility work, stretching, massage, PT. And then also, I think nutrition is huge. Not only do you have to take care of your body, luckily, if you don't hit the pavement, cycling is relatively low impact. So, as opposed to running, cycling, you can go easy spin for an hour and it's not going to cost you anything. I usually don't take a lot of days off. Yesterday I did. I was exhausted. I'm trying to learn in my older age to listen when I'm tired. I'm like, I don't want to ride. Oh, I probably shouldn't. But it's like eating, course eating before, and then it's like fueling during the training is really important. They're eating insane amount of high carbohydrate, like gels and mixes to keep the glycogen storage is up while you're on the bike that long. And then immediately after, you have the recovery window that you need to get 30 minutes in. You need to get not only your beet juice, cherry juice, and all the new things they're doing, but also just like a chocolate milk type of a thing, some protein, some carbs, and then a real meal. And so then you just have to keep that. So it's all about really staying loose, limber to try to increase that longevity. And then there's so much on just the fueling and nutrition strategy because you're making your body burn insane amount of calories, throughout the day. And you want to keep that fuel burning and there, but also so you don't bonk. So there's a lot, it's a very hard sport and it's very complicated on the recovery. And each rider is different too. Maybe I'm like super flexible, so I don't get very tight, but I need to work better on my recovery drinks afterwards or my fueling during, because I've done it for so long, my body's very efficient. And then I have to remind myself, no, you still need to keep fueling, keep energy in you. So when the move goes, you're ready. So it's intense.
I cannot even imagine, like, just from what you're sharing and what I saw on TV when I was a kid. And now my brother is on a bike all day because he lives in Belgium, and he just got a new bike and he's like so excited because he's able to do like 80 kilometers a day. And I'm like, if I do 10 kilometers, I'm like that. And so for those that never went on a bike or they never try a hard sport like this, what would be your advice to them in order to build this resilience? Because all this came with a lot of advantages for you now in the business world.
Yeah, I think it's just starting. It's like I always have this saying too, like start lines deserve more celebration than finish lines. And I really believe that because I know when I was coming back, like we were talking from this traumatic brain injury and I'm lining up to something and I am terrified. Like I'm terrified of hitting my head again. I'm terrified of not performing. I don't even know if I want to be there. But like we said, I told myself I had to be there or else. And it was just for me. But I think it's just starting. So it sounds like you're going to have a cycling goal in your future. I'm feeling that you're going to leave this podcast. You're going to call your brother and you're going to find some ride that you want to do in Belgium and you're going to do it. But so once again, going back to the goal that, finding something that inspires you and not what I'm telling you to do. I'm not going to go tell you to do Flanders, although now I want you to, but I brought that up. But just like a Flanders sportif.
I don't like the cobblestone.
And there's like a million people that do it. It looks terrifying.
And especially on rain, it's intense.
First time
No.
I did it.
But I mean, you're in it for the long haul. You just have to start somewhere. And I think, I know I do that looking at my inbox or something. Like I'm just like, ooh, deer in the headlights. I don't know if I want to do that. That's a scary email. I don't want to answer it. You have to just start and then consistently keep building. And a great way to do that is the goal. So you have like a countdown. Is it a metric century, like 100K or 50K, whatever. And you have it, but then you have a training partner or accountability partner. So you have somebody that's going to get coffee with you and start going riding with you as you guys build towards this goal together. And I think accountability and people to do it with and that sense of community. And cycling's a great community sport for that reason, though. There's so many clubs out there and running clubs and all of that where it's like bringing people together. And sometimes you don't want to do it alone and sometimes you do, right? Sometimes like being alone is nice in your thoughts. But when you're just starting, I think sometimes it's nice to at least have a carrot that you're building towards with friends and snacks.
A lot of snacks, especially if you're cycling. My brother has this routine in which he go on a certain route to end up at this automated machine for ice cream. And for me, it was, of course, like for ice cream, like you usually get classic snacks and stuff, but to get ice cream from this type of vending machine, I was like, okay, that's interesting. I'll go on that route with you also.
Yeah. Well, I call myself a treat-oriented athlete, so I'm very treat-based. So I like to ride to like my favorite pizza place or favorite view, very like treat that's like, oh, if I just get there, then I get this treat and then I have to come home. And it's a long way home, but it works.
Yeah, and I love the
Sweets.
parallels between sports and entrepreneurship because a lot of things that you describe so far are so similar in building a business in a sustainable way, like to fuel yourself both with rest, good food, and so on, and as well making sure you take one day at a time. But if you are to draw a parallel yourself from the things that you learn from sports that you now successfully apply in your businesses, how that translates?
Yeah, I think that sports, they don't just teach competition, they teach you to adapt, to listen and lead. And they teach you also to push through those setbacks. And then your story starts becoming a story that can guide others. And it's just so much more than just sport. And then it does translation into business for me very well. I think that there's unexpected leadership moments that you find where you might not have signed up to be somebody that's going to advocate for traumatic brain injuries. Or I work with some of my sponsors and clients on product innovation specifically for female athletes. And I didn't ever intend to be that person, but sports kind of did bring me these unexpected leadership moments where then now we can really make a difference in the world, in my opinion, and industry. But it's by pushing through. And I think sports has taught me to push through some of those difficult moments. And then also just that life balance. So pursuing sports at a high level while I was also working with clients, it taught me too that you're kind of in it for the long haul. And if you do protect your own balance, that means you can lead longer and better. And that applies to the bike and in entrepreneurship or business. And I think it's also helpful in that leadership role that you remember that you are more than just the CEO, just the founder, just the athlete. Like you're also so much more. And then I think when you are able to see how much value you bring in different parts of your life, then you have less of a chance of burning out or losing yourself in just one role. And we were talking about recovery too, and sports teach you to push your limits. And I know when you're starting business, my husband and I started a company during COVID, and you're pushing, but then when also do you go, oh, we need to take a little break because we're getting really tired. Like when you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder and you're pitching, right? And it's hard. It's such a grind. And that's so much like sports, especially cycling, because it's like my races are very, very long. And but you're pushing. So you have to remember that recovery piece too, and like taking care of yourself. I say like forward progress, take care of yourself. But then what sports do, you can't hide who you are really in sports sometimes. I mean, you can do your poker face, you can try, but there's still a scoreboard, there's results, there's a TV on you. And so I think I also learned just being authentic and vulnerable and being me. It's a great story, but also as a founder and an entrepreneur, you have to be authentic in you and you pitch yourself to investors, to other clients. And the more you are you and real and raw and showcase how intelligent and brilliant your idea is, the more successful I think you're going to be there too. It's a great story to tell. So it's pushing through and then also remaining true to yourself without being burned out.
I love it. That's a super beautiful parallel because indeed that's the reality of business and sports. And I know how passionate you are about making sports more and opening opportunities and education to others in order to have this chance of including sports in their life. Because as your example and many others that are both great in sports, but they build a successful business on the side, since they go hand in hand. And can you share a bit more about that, about your path into opening opportunities?
Yeah, I just think it is so important to get more, especially women in sports, young women, and have them stay in sports. There's a lot of studies that, a lot of young women get into sports and then around the ages of 12 to 14, they drop out of sports for obvious reasons, right? Life changes and body changes. But the studies are showing if you're a female student athlete and compete in collegiate sports, you're like 98% chance going to be a C-suite executive. It's just keeping women in sports and then how successful you can be later in life. So it's not just about the sport, but it's what the sport is teaching you for later life success. So finding out those stats, realizing how blessed I was that I grew up in a very athletic family that start sports till after that age, really. But, growing up on a ranch, we were very active. But I stayed in sports. Now I'm realizing how that changed my life. And then also how much there's these barriers to entry. This is now our 4th year of the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift, coming back in full force, thanks to companies like Zwift that believe in the ROI of investing in women's cycling. And our last winner, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, that just won the Women's Tour de France Femme avec Zwift. And she said that she grew up wishing she was a boy because she never could have competed in the tour. And then now she's standing there on the podium in her yellow jersey. And so there is something that if young women can see it happening, then they will want to be that way. So there's also visibility is viability. The more we watch women in sports, the more women win, and we're inspiring the next generation. So when we saw this just kind of disconnect in young women leaving sport, my husband and I started what we thought was just a fun COVID project, but we sold bandanas of all things, but it was during COVID and we didn't want to make sourdough bread. And so we started a consulting firm and sold bandanas and some t-shirts, but mainly we raised money to create scholarships just to get more student identifying female athletes, yeah. Okay. I think I said that right. In sport. So we have a program here. Are lucky in the United States, we have NICA, which is an incredible high school mountain bike league. And there's a local league here called NorCal High School that's a part of NICA. So I can go and camp with the girls. They have a program called GRIT, which is girls riding together. And then when we go to gravel events around the country, we can then raise money in those specific communities. So where I am racing, we can make sure we're giving an impact back to young women to get on bikes. And then I'll even do more, like we did More Women, More Miles at Unbound this year, where they open up extra spots for women to come and join me to ride, and I'll pace them. So then they have this, we all start together. Because sometimes, like we were talking about, it's scary to start something. And so for me, I've been doing it a long time, but to bring more women to the start line is just such a powerful thing to do. And to realize that you're making a difference, not only in their lives, but inspiring everybody else that's watching and their daughters. So we're really into getting more girls on bikes, especially, but more kids on bikes in sports. It's provided some pretty awesome opportunities. It was a keynote at Congress to work on the Women's Health Initiative, where we are trying to, which had passed on, but is getting more funding for research for women, female warfighters, things like that. So taking what I've learned from female-specific product innovation in the cycling industry and bringing that into the warfighters, Department of Defense, and showing, which is so cool because similar, they're like, why aren't there more women 5-star generals? Well, if you don't provide appropriate apparel or opportunity, or the barrier to entry is too high, like, I know that's way different than sports. That's got intense, but
still there are similarities. And what's beautiful about your work is the fact that you impact so many lives, and it's rarely the case. Like, of course, through entrepreneurship, you give people something to do, like they put food on the table and so on, but you basically give the power in their hand, and opening those doors and like helping some just start. I think then they'll be able to see the power of this, the power of sports. Like they will enjoy the event, they'll forever remember that, and that will lead to the next, to the next, to the next, and a few years later they might be the next big CEO or the next founder and so on, and will impact themselves, other lives. And this like domino effect, if you want, it's something that it's often overlooked, because people think like, oh, but why I should do this work? I achieve my goals in life. I become maybe like you, world champion, but after that, once they achieve that big goal, everything fades because they don't have something next. That was the goal for them. That's it. But what I admire you, is this, like you stop focusing just on cycling. You use cycling for a greater good. And you're a perfect example for anyone listening that has some sort of experience in any field, from sports, business to education and so on, to a bit better.
yeah, that's so nice of you. Thank you.
Yeah,
But
that's
I
really
mean, like
needed.
sports, wow, that's amazing. You're going to make me all tear up.
Yeah, it's the reality of things, like, because like I got the chance to meet a lot of individuals, both in through the podcast and as well in the real life, that are making an impact. But some, after talking to them, I was like, why just focus on yourself only when you have all these abilities, all this knowledge, and you have the power to make bigger goods in the world. But of course, not everyone probably wants that. Not everyone can do that in a true sense of the word. But on this point, I would love to ask you about the principles behind this. Like, because often people ask for like frameworks, step-by-step processes, but what are the principles and the beliefs that you're being guided by in order to make sure that these don't stagnate? It's not just, I don't know, a sparkle. It'll become a true flame that will get more women back into sport, and especially cycling and others that can have a true positive impact in their life.
Yeah, sports have given me such a powerful platform through racing for as long as I have that I realize what I was given such a gift with such amazing community and fans and supporters that have just supported me through all of my ups and downs and picking me up when I'm falling and celebrating when I win and lose. And I wanted to give them something back. And I realized how important they were to me. And so what guides me is purpose and impact. First of all, I want to wake up every morning with purpose. And this is a great purpose, just to make sports in general more inclusive, provide more opportunity, more diversity, and then impact. I want to be able to see that my purpose is worth it and to actually watch it in the field. So that's why I love camping with those girls and mountain biking with them, even though I'm terrified of mountain biking. They're much better than I am. And riding with junior teams or having hundreds of women come and ride with me in Emporia, Kansas. And I see that impact and realizing when you show up, people show up too. And then you see more people on bikes and you go, okay, purpose, impact. And then your heart's just growing 3 sizes like big. So then you realize all the stress you had and that worry about your finances and are you doing too much? Are you enough? I ask those questions all the time. And then when you see that, for a minute, I go, wow, I might be doing enough. And then I go, no, there has to be more to do. So, and then the next is just it's opportunity and just increasing opportunity. And whether that's with inclusion, diversity, and sometimes it's just showing up. Like if we can provide a scholarship for a rider or a free race entry or get a bike for somebody or provide a coaching for free or something just to provide opportunity to keep lifting up women in sports. I'm guided by that. So yeah, I'm going to go purpose, impact, and opportunity with inclusion.
Love it. And you mentioned something there that there are those moments in which you feel that you're not good enough or you didn't make enough and so on. And until you see that you are at that event or something happens, you are able to give a scholarship and so on, and you truly enjoy it. But from all those that are back home now listening and watching and feel the same, and personally as well, sometimes I feel that I don't do enough, what would be your advice to them?
I struggle with that so much because I can tell you, Gabe, you are enough. And I fully believe that. And I'm like, wow, you're doing incredible work. But when it comes to me, I struggle with going, am I? So I actually have it on my friendship bracelet here. It says enough because I made a joke that I was like, sometimes you have to be like, I am enough. And that enough doesn't mean that you have to be a gold star winner that day. Maybe you being enough is you're exhausted and you're sitting on the couch. So then I thought enough was kind of a fun word to have on a friendship bracelet because maybe it's enough with a toxic friendship or enough with a bad business deal or enough of ice cream that day. Or is it like you are enough? And it just is a good reminder that I think you're enough wherever you're sitting, right where you are, because that's where you're supposed to be. I think most of the people listening to the show are going to be achievers that are trying to find that next, how do we get better? How do we get better? And sometimes you have to sit and just be like, ground yourself and be like, I am enough. And that sometimes is taking that break and finding a little balance in there. So it's something I really struggle with, but I will tell anybody listening to this that you are 100% enough.
Right back at you. Everyone that listen now in their head says to you that you're enough, and look at your achievements, and not just from a sport perspective, but as well from an impact perspective. Like you're changing lives, and just remember every single time when you struggle through this that you're changing lives, and what else can be more fulfilling in this life? Because that's something that remains. Because of course the names on the titles and all that stuff, those remains as well in history. but the lives that we impact, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, agreed.
And you need to do some announcements right now. One, it's for those that you truly want to get in touch with you. Call them out, who they are and why they should reach out to you.
Whoa. Who's reaching out to me?
I don't know, might
I
be
don't.
the next world champion, might be someone that
Yeah.
wants to go on a bike, but she's struggling to make that first step, or maybe she doesn't even have a bike, or someone that's heard about gravel racing, but was like, how is that different than road racing? And so on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, any of those, any and all. You can find me on Instagram at AMTETRICK. Reach out with any questions. Getting into bikes, advice for yourself, your daughter. I don't know. I'm here to help. Also, tune in when we're on the move to watch the Femme, because the more we watch women, the more women win. So we are on Peacock every day during the Tour de France Femme and Bike Swift, but always hashtag watch the Femme there for sure. There's a lot of joy in bikes it's great. It's a great time to be in women's sports, I think. So I'm here for that.
Absolutely. And it's growing. And that's the most important thing. And multiple other sports in the women world start to pick up, and even some that are more, let's say, even more physical, like football and so on, or you guys call it soccer. And yeah, it's nice to see, because indeed it opens so many opportunities, and every single sport that become more inclusive helps other opening doors or becoming better in general in life. And the second announcement is just for 60 seconds, and is you going back in time and meet Ali just around 1-2 weeks after she first got on a bike. What will you tell her?
I would tell her, little cowgirl, you have no idea what's coming up next, but remember, always wear the boots and own your truth. You're stronger than you know, and you'll have no idea where this bike will take you. But remember who you are, own your truth, and always wear those cowboy boots.
Nice. Love it. Thank you so much, Ali, for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.